By 2030, it should be possible to eliminate extreme poverty on the planet. And secondly, it should be possible to keep planetary warming below 2 degrees. So this is the intent behind two big agreements that were signed by governments in September and December 2015. The Sustainable Development Goals at the United Nations, and then the Paris Conference on Climate Change. And the significance of these two streams of work under the United Nations, the development stream and the environment stream coming together, is very, very high. The importance of it is that there is a recognition now that in order to have prosperity for future generations, we have to include sustainability and human development. The evidence is from the Millennium Development Goals, which succeeded in halving, during the time that the MDGs were running from 2000 to 2015, global poverty halved, extreme poverty halved. That level of ambition to eradicate extreme poverty on the planet is actually achievable. And also we know that if governments take concerted action on climate change, it is possible to stabilise global warming at 2 degrees. So the sustainability agenda is obviously more than just climate change, but the SDGs embody 17 goals, 169 targets that deal with the complexity of different areas of human development and bring them together in one unifying framework and seek to get government commitments to work to achieve them by 2030. So that's the 2030 agenda. And there's some criticism of the SDGs that, there's too many of them, but the world is a complex place. And that's in part why we're here today, because what we're going to be doing is thinking about complexity as we go about our development work, but with a focus on that ultimate endpoint of eliminating extreme poverty and ensuring sustainability for the planet by 2030. Australia played a very active role in signing up to the SDGs. Now, it's not a treaty, so there's no treaty obligations, but under the SDGs, countries are required to have a national framework for developing their work on the SDGs. So there's some countries that have got a run on this. So Germany, for example, now has a framework which goes down to the state government level in Germany. And the second thing is governments can commit to doing a national voluntary review, which sort of shows their progress over time in achieving the SDGs. And the first national voluntary reviews are expected to be really sort of setting a baseline. And we're really pleased that a couple of weeks ago, Australia committed to a national voluntary review. So we're now talking with DFAT about what that process will look like and how it will be coordinated across the country. So it's quite exciting because it means that there is a push to actually socialise the SDGs at a government level. There's also a high degree of interest in the SDGs across different parts of society. So in the lead up to the SDGs and after them being signed, ACFID with some partners, the UN Global Compact in Australia, the Sustainable Development Solutions Network run out of the Monash Sustainability Institute, and ACOS came together and ran a summit late last year. And what was really interesting is we got statements of commitment from different sectors. 30 Australian corporate leaders of multinationals, banks and the like, signed up their commitment to the SDGs. And I thought, this is so interesting. Why is there the buy-in? And a leader from Boral, so, in construction and building materials, sort of gave some insight into that. And it goes, again, to the heart of why we're here today around complexity. He said, look, we're a multinational. We work in 60 countries. We're in 60 different jurisdictions, 60 different cultures. So it's very complex. We have a commitment to corporate social responsibility. We have a commitment to having social impact in our work. We want to develop strategy around that. But given all that diversity and complexity as a multinational, we're not going to reinvent the wheel. We have governments signed up to the Sustainable Development Goals. So we're going to align what we do with the SDGs. It makes sense for us. And I thought that was a fantastic riposte to those critics of the SDGs, so there's too many of them. Because here was a corporate leader saying basically, no, look, the world is complicated, we're complicated as organisations, and this actually simplifies things for us. The work around socialising the SDGs will go on, and I think they will pick up in the lead up to this national voluntary review process. The review happens in July next year, and there'll be a series of meetings and consultations led by different government departments, including DFAT, with our sector, to get input from different parts of society. But coming back into organisations, there's also been a response. So IWDA have been doing some very interesting work on the SDGs and popularising it, and I've been sharing that on my LinkedIn site. WaterAid, who are not here today but work with the water industry, just ran an event at Parliament last week showing how which SDGs were relevant to their work in the water sector. DPC, our Development Practice Committee, has also been thinking about this, and they're interested to sort of say, well, look, the temptation of the SDGs is to take one of the 17 goals or a couple of them and say, this is what our organisation specialises in and this is what's relevant to us. And that's fine and legitimate, but they're also interested, well, how would you take a cross-cutting approach towards the SDGs? What would that look like? What would it look like to work in that complexity? And that's why we need a systems approach. So they've done a couple of things. They've conducted market research amongst ACFID members, held a design process in 2016 to identify potential toolkits which might assist ACFID members to engage more deeply with the SDGs. That workshop acknowledged that to achieve the ambitious targets embodied in the SDGs, we require systemic changes and understanding the linkages between sustainable development across different sectors, different timeframes, and also different countries around the world. The rationale for today is that we believe that a systems approach can assist us to understand the integrated outcomes of different actions and decisions, including the potential for unintended harm, and allow informed choices to be made about how to achieve human development and sustainability promises inherent in the Sustainable Development Goals. Additionally, we need to be thinking about who we work with, how we work with them, and the types of new relationships we might need to create as we go forward towards those 2030 timeframes to achieve the goals. The UN recognised this and called for multi-stakeholder partnerships as a critical element to mobilise and share knowledge, expertise, technology and financial resources to support the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals. Now, we're non-government organisations. Partnerships are part of our core way of working, so we should be really good at this. I think we need to be looking at working with businesses, with universities, academia, obviously our partners in developing countries as well, as we go around looking at a systematic approach to achieving the SDGs. This workshop and the materials that are going to come out of it, so already I mentioned the DPC's toolkit, part of a stream of work that ACFID is going to be doing with you, our members, and with others to actually develop rigour in our thinking and to actually, hopefully, make things simpler in approaching the SDGs with that ultimate goal of eliminating extreme poverty. We're really pleased to be working with Kerry Graham from Collaboration from Impact. They're a leading social enterprise working in this space, and it's not the first time we've worked with Kerry, so I think you're going to find a really enlivening and rigorous in some of the propositions she's putting to you today and testing with you. CSIRO, we're rapt to have their Raptor system. It's a framework developed through programming around climate adaptation and decision-making processes. We're going to look at how this tool has been applied to a case study in PNG that ADRA has been running. And we hope by the end of this workshop, you'll be able to identify tools and approaches clearly that you can use within your organisation to help think systematically and to apply collaborative approaches to help achieve your organisation and our sector's contribution to achieving the Sustainable Development Goals.